Okay, let's dive into a question that millions of people with diabetes have asked. What is the absolute best bread you can eat? The answer isn't just about what to avoid. It might actually change the way you think about your diet entirely. If you're one of the 37 million Americans with diabetes, this one probably hits close to home. You get that diagnosis, and you immediately wonder, do I have to give up bread forever? It's a huge fear. And let's be honest, that's a really tough change for anyone to make. And for the longest time, the conventional wisdom has been a pretty firm yes. Doctors, dietitians, you name it. They've often told patients that bread is just off the table, that it's basically a one-way ticket to a blood sugar spike that's going to sabotage all your health goals. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the right kind of bread could actually be a tool you use to manage your health? This is the key right here. The right bread can actually help support your blood sugar control instead of destroying it. All right, now that we've set the stage, let's get into the good stuff. We are counting down the top 3 diabetes-friendly breads, kicking it off with number 3, pumpernickel. And I'm not talking about that light, fluffy stuff. Oh no, we're talking about that dense, dark, European-style bread that has some pretty serious science behind it. And the science really is impressive. Get this. A 10-week trial with people who had type 2 diabetes found a 19% improvement in their insulin sensitivity. That basically means their bodies got way better at using insulin to handle blood sugar, all from eating authentic pumpernickel every day. That is a massive impact just from switching up your bread. So what's the big secret? Well, it boils down to this special kind of fiber in rye bran called arabinoxolin. This stuff has been proven to slow everything down, cutting those really dangerous after-meal blood sugar spikes by an average of 22%. It literally changes how your body handles the food you just ate. But, and this is a big one, you have to get the right kind. When you're in the store, you have to be a detective. Check that label. You want to see whole rye flour or rye berries as the #1 ingredient, not wheat flour. And watch out for brands that use caramel coloring or molasses to fake that dark color. Real pumpernickel, like the brand Mestemacher, is super dense, almost like a cake. All right, let's move on to our number 2 spot. This is where things get even more interesting. We're talking about the sourdough secret. This ancient way of making bread is so much more than just a tangy taste. It's a total metabolic game changer. Just how much of a game changer? Well, one study found that diabetic patients who were eating authentic sourdough had a 25% lower glucose response compared to those eating standard whole wheat. To put that in perspective, we're talking about average post-meal readings that can be 30 to 35 points lower. That's huge. The magic here is all in the fermentation. See, in real sourdough, the wild yeast and bacteria in the starter are basically pre-digesting the starches for you. This whole process, which can take more than 24 hours, dramatically slows down how fast those starches turn into sugar in your bloodstream. It's like a natural slow-release system built right into the bread. And believe me, the difference between the real deal and the fakes you see on the shelf is night and day. Authentic sourdough has just a few simple ingredients: flour, water, salt, and that starter. The imposters, they often use commercial yeast for a super fast rise and just add artificial sour agents for the flavor. You get none of the amazing metabolic benefits. So, how can you find the good stuff? First things first. Check those ingredients. If you see the word yeast listed, put it back on the shelf. That is not the real thing. You want to see sourdough starter. And don't be shy. Ask your local baker how long they ferment their dough. You're looking for at least 12 hours, but honestly, 24 is even better. And now for the top spot, the #1 absolute best bread for diabetics, the one that endocrinologists often recommend, is sprouted green bread. This one is the undisputed champion, really, for its all-around approach to blood sugar control and fantastic nutrition. I mean, just look at this comparison. The glycemic index, which tells you how fast a food raises your blood sugar, well, white bread is way, way up there at a 75. Sprouted green bread, it's all the way down in the 35 to 45 range. That is a gigantic difference in how your body's going to react after you eat a slice. And the long-term benefits? They're just staggering. A huge study from Harvard found that people who regularly ate sprouted grain products had a 34% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes in the first place. So we're not just talking about managing the condition, we're talking about prevention. Now, this is where it gets really, really cool. Sprouted green bread has this amazing thing called the second meal effect. What that means is eating it for breakfast doesn't just help your blood sugar after that meal. Nope. It actually creates a metabolic advantage that helps your glucose control at lunch and even at dinner, hours and hours later. It literally sets your entire day up for a win. Okay, so where do you find this stuff and what should you look for? First, head to the freezer section. Real sprouted grain bread, like the brands Ezekiel 49 or Silver Hills, has no preservatives, so it's always sold frozen. The absolute #1 ingredient has to be sprouted whole grains. And be on the lookout for hidden added sugars or anything called enriched flour on that label.
Whew! Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. So let's pull all this great information together into your own Smart Bread playbook to give you a really clear path forward.
Here's your quick glance cheat sheet. Sprouted grain is your #1 pick for that awesome all-day stability, all thanks to the second meal effect. Sourdough is a fantastic choice, especially if you have any digestive sensitivities, because that fermentation process makes it so much easier on your gut. And pumpernickel, with its super low GI and dense texture, is absolutely perfect for portion control and kicking those intense bread cravings. So putting all this into practice really comes down to 3 simple steps. First, choose one of these authentic breads using the label reading guides we just talked about. Second, always, and I mean always, pair it with some healthy protein and fats to slow digestion down even more. And third, the most important step, test your own blood sugar. Everybody's body is different, so you need to see what works best for you. So as we've seen, the right bread can absolutely be a part of a healthy diabetic diet. It's not about restriction at all. It's about making smarter choices. So the only question left is, now that you know the science, which one of these are you going to try first?